Hey everyone, I'm Sofia Alvarez, and this is the story of how one harsh comment flipped my world upside down and changed an entire organization. If you've ever felt like your workplace is squeezing the life out of you, this one's for you. Stick around because what I did after being told to toughen up might just spark something in you. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. I share raw, real stories like this because no one should feel crushed in silence. I'm 26, a program coordinator at Seaside Harmony Arts, a nonprofit in Azure Bay. This gorgeous coastal city where the ocean's rhythm feels like it's calling you to create. My job is to make art happen. Community festivals, painting workshops, poetry slams, fundraisers that bring people together. There's nothing like watching a teenager grin as they finish their first mural, or seeing a grandparent light up at a pottery wheel. It's magic. But behind the scenes, that magic was costing me everything. I grew up on the rougher side of Azure Bay, in a tiny apartment with my mom, a single parent who worked as a diner waitress, a night cleaner, and a weekend tutor just to keep us going. She'd come home bone-tired, her apron stained, but she'd still sit with me and say, "Sophia, your art is your strength. It'll carry you far." That stuck with me. I'd sketch late into the night, dreaming of a life where creativity wasn't just survival. I earned scholarships, studied art history, and landed this job at Seaside Harmony Arts. The office, with its vibrant murals and open mic nights, felt like a universe away from the nights I'd drawn by candlelight when our electricity got cut. When I started, the deal was clear. Pour your heart into this work, prove your passion, and you'll shape the community. I believed it. I color-coded my planner, showed up early, and threw myself into every project. But 3 years in, the dream was fading. My workload had exploded, planning festivals, training volunteers, chasing grants, answering donor emails at 1 a.m. My salary crept up just 3% a year, barely covering rent. My desk, littered with paint tubes and event flyers, became my permanent address. Lunch breaks? Gone, swallowed by last-minute donor calls or urgent revisions. Last April, I hit a wall. Another email dropped into my inbox at 7 p.m. "Sophia, Emma left for a museum job in Portland. Can you take on her kids' art camp?" "Just temporary. Thanks." That was the fifth temporary project in 4 months. No one was replaced. Emma's work, like everyone else's, just landed on me. I'd watched colleagues burn out and quit, their empty desks haunting reminders of what happens when you can't keep up. I knew I had to say something. I prepared like I was curating a gallery show. I practiced my words, calm and professional, and pulled together evidence, spreadsheets of my event hours, volunteer schedules, late-night emails. I even researched solutions, like hiring part-time staff or redistributing tasks. Heart-pounding, I walked into my manager Lila Torres's office. She was glued to her laptop, scrolling through donor lists, a half-eaten granola bar crumbling on her desk. "Lila," I started, voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. "I'm struggling. I'm working 65-hour weeks. Haven't had a weekend off since January. I'm worried about burnout." She didn't even glance up. "Toughen up, Sophia," she said, waving her hand like she was shooing a fly. "We're all stretched thin here." 5 words. That's all I got. My vision blurred, not with tears but with something sharper. Anger, maybe, or clarity. I stood frozen in her doorway, clutching my notes, as her words echoed. I nodded, face blank, and turned to leave. But inside, something ignited. Lila's dismissal wasn't just about me. It was proof of a system that chewed people up. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mom's voice rang in my head. "Your art is your strength." She'd worked herself to exhaustion, believing hard work would pay off. I thought about my team, Jonah, pale and jittery, canceling plans with his partner. Priya, our volunteer coordinator, hiding migraines to run workshops. To Lila and the higher-ups, we weren't artists or people. We were machines, expected to churn out events until we broke. I opened my laptop and started typing. If Lila only valued results, I'd give her results she couldn't ignore. Over the weekend, my apartment became mission control. Coffee mugs piled up, sketchbooks pushed aside as I dug into our event management system. It tracked everything: hours logged, emails sent, event turnout, volunteer retention. The data told a story. Staff worked through breaks, volunteers quit after weeks of overwork, and event errors, like misprinted flyers or double-booked venues, spiked after 50-hour weeks. I created an anonymous survey and sent it to the team. Are you burned out? How's your health? What happens when you ask for help? I wasn't sure anyone would respond. I mean, who has time to fill out a survey when you're drowning? But I needed their voices. By Sunday morning, responses poured in, raw and unfiltered. I got bronchitis but still ran a poetry slam. I missed my brother's graduation for a fundraiser that flopped. Lila told me to stop complaining when I asked for fewer night shifts. Each answer was a punch to the gut. This wasn't just my fight. It was everyone's. I started building a report. The cost of creative burnout, weaving together data and stories. It wasn't a rant. It was a case for change, showing how our overwork was tanking the very mission we loved. As I formatted the report at 2 a.m. last Sunday, a strange calm settled over me. This wasn't about proving Lila wrong. It was about proving we deserved better. Art thrives on passion, not exhaustion. I printed the report, bound it with care, and wrote a simple note. Lila, as requested, I've toughened up. Here's my analysis of our challenges and solutions. Let's discuss. Sophia. Monday morning, I'd walk into Lila's office with this report. It wasn't about revenge, it was about revolution. If you're watching and feel trapped in a workplace that doesn't see you, stay with me. What I did next might show you how to rewrite your story. Hit like, subscribe, and drop your own experiences in the comments. Your struggle is data, and data can change everything. Hey everyone, Sofia Alvarez here, back with part 2 of my story. If you missed part 1, go check it out. I shared how a single dismissive comment from my boss lit a fire in me to change a toxic workplace. If you're feeling crushed by your job, this video's for you. We're diving into how I turned my anger into action, using data to expose what was really going on. Hit that subscribe button, and let's get into it. Your struggle matters, and I'm here to show you how to make it heard. Last time, I told you about that moment in my manager Lila Torres's office at Seaside Harmony Arts, our nonprofit in Azure Bay. I'd poured out my heart about working 65-hour weeks, no weekends, and feeling like I was drowning. Her response? Toughen up, Sophia. Those 5 words hit like a slap, but they also woke me up. I realized this wasn't just about me. It was about a system that was breaking everyone around me. That weekend, I decided to fight back. Not with a dramatic outburst, but with something sharper. The truth. Backed by data. I'm 26, a program coordinator at Seaside Harmony Arts, where we bring art to life through festivals, workshops, and fundraisers in this vibrant coastal city. I love the work. Seeing kids paint murals, retirees find joy in pottery, or poets share their truth at open mics. But the cost of that magic was killing us. My desk was a chaos of event flyers and coffee cups, my inbox a never-ending flood of donor demands. Colleagues were dropping like flies, quitting from exhaustion, and their work just piled onto those of us left. I couldn't keep going like this, and neither could my team. That Friday night after Lila's dismissal, I sat in my tiny apartment, the sound of Azure Bay's waves faint through my window. My mom's words echoed, "Your art is your strength." Growing up, I'd watched her work 3 jobs: waitress, cleaner, tutor, her hands always moving, her spirit never breaking. She believed hard work should lead somewhere better, and I'd carried that into this job, thinking it was my ticket to a meaningful life. But 3 years in, I was just surviving, not thriving. I opened my laptop, determined to prove we deserved better. Seaside Harmony Arts had recently rolled out a new event management system to track everything: hours logged, emails sent, volunteer schedules, event turnout. It was supposed to boost efficiency, but it became my secret weapon. I spent hours that night pulling reports, my screen glowing as I dug into the numbers. The data painted a grim picture. Staff regularly worked through lunch, logged back in at 10 p.m., and churned out events at a pace that left no room for creativity. Volunteers, the heart of our community programs, were dropping out at a 40% rate after just 3 months. Event errors, like misbooked venues or typos in programs, jumped 35% when we hit 50-hour weeks. I paused, staring at the numbers. This wasn't just overwork. It was a death spiral for our mission. Art is supposed to inspire, not destroy. I thought about my team. Jonah, our graphic designer, had dark circles under his eyes, canceling date nights to finish posters. Priya, our volunteer coordinator, was popping painkillers for migraines but still smiling through workshops. Even our interns looked haunted, juggling school and our endless demands. We weren't creating joy anymore. We were barely holding it together. I needed more than numbers to make my case. Lila and the higher-ups might ignore spreadsheets, but they couldn't dismiss real stories. So, I created an anonymous survey using a private account. I kept it simple. Do you feel burned out? How has your health changed since working here? What happens when you ask for support? Have you missed personal milestones because of work? I sent it to current staff, volunteers, and even a few who'd recently quit. I wasn't sure anyone would respond. Everyone was too busy to breathe, let alone type out their feelings. But I hit send, hoping their truth would meet mine. By Saturday afternoon, my inbox was flooding. I sat at my dining table, now a mess of notebooks and coffee mugs, reading responses that made my chest tighten. I got bronchitis but ran a painting workshop anyway, because no one else could. I missed my sister's wedding to fix a botched fundraiser that barely raised $500. Lila told me to stop whining when I asked for fewer night shifts. One volunteer wrote, "I love this organization, but I had to quit after developing stress-induced eczema. I couldn't afford the doctor's bills." A former staffer shared, "I missed my kid's first school play because I was on a donor call. No one even thanked me." Each response was a piece of a puzzle I'd been too busy to see. This wasn't just about long hours. It was about a culture that punished balance and rewarded sacrifice. I cross-referenced the survey with our event data. After the third 60-hour week in a row, event quality tanked. Attendance dropped 20%, and feedback forms mentioned rushed or disorganized programs. Our mission, to bring art to the community, was suffering because we were too exhausted to deliver. I thought of my mom, who'd always said, "Art should lift you up, not break you down." We were breaking. I started building my report, The Cost of Creative Burnout. I wanted it to hit Lila and the leadership where it mattered, their bottom line. I pulled financial data from our budget reports, buried in shared drives. In the past year, we'd spent $120,000 on last-minute contractors to fix errors caused by overworked staff. Volunteer turnover cost us another $50,000 in recruitment and training. I found a health report showing a 200% spike in stress-related sick days compared to other local nonprofits. The numbers were undeniable. Burnout wasn't just hurting us, it was bleeding the organization dry. I wove in research from arts journals and studies on creative burnout. A piece from Art and Leadership said, Overworked teams produce 30% less innovative work, critical for a nonprofit like ours that prided itself on unique events. Another study linked exhaustion to higher error rates, which explained our recent string of flubbed festivals. I added case studies of arts organizations that boosted engagement by prioritizing staff well-being. One group in Seattle cut workloads by 15% and saw a 25% jump in community participation. If they could do it, why couldn't we? The survey responses needed a voice, so I created a section called The Human Cost. I anonymized the stories, letting them speak without fear. I haven't slept more than 5 hours a night in months. My doctor says my anxiety is work-related. I canceled my therapy sessions because I couldn't leave work early. I love art, but this job makes me hate it. Reading those words, I felt a mix of rage and resolve. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Jonah, Priya, the volunteers, even the community we served. By Sunday evening, my report was taking shape. 15 pages of charts, stats, and stories, with a final section proposing solutions. I suggested workload caps, hiring part-time support, and creative rest days where no new tasks could be assigned. Each idea came with a cost-benefit analysis, showing how investing in people would save money and boost our mission. I leaned back, my eyes burning from staring at my screen. This wasn't a complaint. It was a blueprint for change. But doubt crept in. What if Lila laughed it off? What if the leadership ignored me? I'd put everything into this job. My heart, my creativity, my mom's belief in me. If I failed, would I be the next to quit? I thought of my team, their tired faces, their unspoken pain. I thought of the kids who'd stopped coming to our workshops because we were too stretched to make them great. I couldn't walk away. My mom's mantra came back. Your art is your strength. This report was my art now, a canvas of truth. I spent Sunday night polishing the report, formatting it with clean visuals, bar graphs showing turnover, pie charts of sick days, quotes in bold. I wanted it to be impossible to ignore. At 1 a.m., I printed it on high-quality paper, the kind we used for donor proposals, and bound it neatly. I wrote a cover note. Lila, as requested, I've toughened up. Here's my analysis of our challenges and solutions. Let's discuss. Sophia. It was professional, but the subtext was clear. I wasn't backing down. As I sealed the binder, I felt a strange calm. This wasn't about proving Lila wrong. It was about proving we could be better. Art thrives when people thrive, and I was ready to fight for both. I looked out my window, the ocean's silhouette dark against the night sky. Tomorrow, I'd walk into Lila's office and hand her this report. It wasn't revenge. It was a wake-up call. If you're watching this and feel like your workplace is draining your soul, don't give up. Your struggle is evidence, and evidence can spark change. Have you ever felt dismissed like I did? Drop your story in the comments. I read everyone. Hit like, subscribe, and join me for part 3, where I take this report to the top and things get real. Together, we can turn burnout into breakthroughs. See you next time. Hey everyone, Sofia Alvarez here with part 3 of my story. If you haven't seen parts 1 and 2, go watch them first. I'm sharing how I went from being dismissed by my boss to shaking up an entire organization. This video is for anyone who's ever felt ignored when they spoke up about being overworked. Today, it gets real. I take my fight to the top, and things start to change. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, and let's dive in. Your voice has power, and I'm here to show you how to use it. I'm 26, a program coordinator at Seaside Harmony Arts, a nonprofit in Azure Bay, where we bring art to life through festivals, workshops, and fundraisers. I love this work. Watching kids splash paint on murals or retirees find their spark in a poetry slam. But for 3 years, I'd been drowning in 65-hour weeks, no weekends, and endless temporary projects. In part one, I told you how my manager, Leila Torres, brushed off my burnout concerns with a cold, "Toughen up, Sofia." In part two, I turned that rejection into fuel, spending a weekend building a 15-page report, The Cost of Creative Burnout, packed with data and stories showing how our overwork was tanking our mission and our people. That Monday morning, I woke up with a mix of nerves and determination. I dressed carefully, a teal blazer that always made me feel like I could take on the world. I got to the office 30 minutes early, the salty breeze of Azure Bay calming my racing heart. My report, bound in a sleek folder, felt like a lifeline. I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for Jonah, our graphic designer with permanent dark circles, Priya, our volunteer coordinator hiding migraines, and the community we were letting down with rushed, error-filled events. I walked into Lila's office at 8:15, right as she settled at her desk, her granola bar still crumbling from Friday. "Good morning, Lila," I said, my voice steady despite the butterflies. She looked up, surprised, like she wasn't used to me taking up space. "What's this about, Sophia?" she asked, already glancing back at her laptop. I placed the binder on her desk, its weight making a soft thud. "I wanted to share this with you. It's my analysis of our team's challenges and some solutions. I think you'll find it eye-opening." She barely looked at the cover note. "Lila, as requested. I've toughened up. Here's my analysis of our challenges and solutions. Let's discuss." "Sophia." "What's this?" she said, flipping it open for half a second before pushing it aside. "Your toughened up attitude?" Her tone was sharp, dismissive, like I was wasting her time. "Exactly," I replied, holding her gaze. "It's data-driven, focused on our mission. I'll be at my desk when you're ready to talk." I walked out, heart pounding but steps measured. I'd done my part. Now it was on her. Back at my desk, I tried to focus on a flyer for our next poetry slam, but my eyes kept darting to Lila's office. Would she even read it? My phone buzzed with a text from Priya. "What did you give Lila?" "She's been staring at that binder for 20 minutes and looks rattled." I didn't reply. The report would speak for itself. But doubt crept in. What if she shredded it? What if this was all for nothing? I thought of my mom, who'd worked 3 jobs and still believed in me. "Your art is your strength," she'd say. This report was my art, and I wasn't backing down. By 10:30, Lila emerged from her office clutching my binder and marched straight to the executive director's suite. No glance my way, no acknowledgement. My stomach flipped. Had I gone too far? At 11:00, the executive assistant's email pinged. "Sophia, please join us in the main conference room at 1 p.m. Bring your laptop." It was from Nadia Patel, our executive director. I'd only met her once, at a fundraiser where she'd praised my energy. Now I was being summoned to the big table. The conference room was intimidating. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean, a long table with our entire leadership board. 7 people who rarely sat in the same room. Nadia, the finance director, the community outreach head, and others I'd only seen in org charts. Lila sat at the far end, her face unreadable. Nadia, poised at the head, nodded at me. "Sophia, we'd like you to walk us through your report." My heart raced, but I connected my laptop to the projector, took a deep breath, and stood. For the next 35 minutes, I presented the cost of creative burnout. I started with the data. 40% volunteer turnover, 35% spike in event errors after 50-hour weeks, $120,000 in contractor costs to fix mistakes. I showed graphs of declining attendance at our festivals, linked to rushed planning. Then, the human toll. Anonymous quotes from my survey. "I missed my sister's wedding for a fundraiser that flopped. I got bronchitis but ran a workshop anyway. I kept my tone professional, focusing on the business impact, how burnout was killing our mission to bring art to Azure Bay. I moved to solutions, workload caps, part-time hires, creative rest days with no new tasks. I showed cost-benefit analyses, proving these changes would save money and boost community engagement. I cited a Seattle nonprofit that cut hours and saw a 25% jump in participation. Our mission thrives when our people do, I said, wrapping up. Burnout isn't the price of art, it's the obstacle to creating it. The room was silent. Nadia leaned forward. How long did this take you, Sofia? Over the weekend, I said. The finance director raised an eyebrow. You built this entire report in 2 days? Yes, I replied. I'd been tracking some data already, and the survey responses came fast. The solutions are based on what I know we can do. Nadia exchanged a glance with the outreach head. You developed these plans yourself? I did, I said. I recommend the workload cap option. It fits our budget and staff size. Nadia closed her copy of the report. Lila, could you and the others step out? I'd like to speak with Sofia privately. Lila's jaw tightened, but she nodded and left with the board. The door clicked shut, and I was alone with Nadia, the ocean glinting behind her. Sit down, Sofia, she said, her voice softer now. This report is remarkable, but it's troubling. It shows a failure in our leadership, mine included, that we didn't see this sooner. I wasn't expecting that. I held her gaze, unsure what to say. I understand, I managed. No, I don't think you do, she said, leaning forward. I've been director for 4 years. This is the first time someone's brought this kind of analysis to me. That's on us. Her accountability caught me off guard. The question is, what do we do now? Not just about the workload, but the fact that it took a coordinator to point it out. I took a breath. Can I speak openly? Please, she said. Your board is focused on event numbers and donor dollars, but there's no measure for sustainability. Staff and volunteers are burning out, and it's hurting our community impact. Events are rushed, errors pile up, and we're losing trust. We need to balance workloads, hire support, and reward quality over quantity. Nadia nodded slowly. And if you were in my shoes, what would you do? Her question threw me. I'd braced for pushback, not an invitation. I'd start with a workload audit across all programs, I said. Form a team with staff and volunteers to share ideas. Pause new events until we're staffed properly. And change how you measure success. Focus on community impact, not just event counts. She studied me. Would you lead this? A new role, community wellness coordinator, reporting to me. Your job would be implementing your report solutions. My mind raced. This wasn't what I'd expected when I walked into Lila's office that morning. I'd need guarantees, I said carefully. Full access to program data, authority to interview staff and volunteers confidentially, a budget for hires, and protection for anyone who speaks up. Nadia smiled faintly. You're negotiating with the executive director. Yes, I said, meeting her eyes. This matters. She extended her hand. Draft a proposal with your terms by Wednesday. I'll have an offer letter by Friday. We shook hands, and I felt the ground shift. My report, born from anger and exhaustion, had opened a door I hadn't seen coming. As I left the room, Jonah caught my eye from his desk, mouthing, "What happened?" I just smiled. They're reviewing my recommendations, I said, keeping it vague. News was already spreading. Lila had been quiet since the meeting, and the assistant was scheduling an urgent board follow-up. By Tuesday, an all-staff email went out. We're launching a workload review and pausing new events. Consultants will support ongoing programs. My phone buzzed with texts from Priya. Is this because of you? I didn't answer. I was too busy drafting my proposal. That afternoon, Nadia's assistant called. "Sophia, please move to the upstairs office tomorrow. Nadia's orders." The upstairs office was a small glass-walled space near the leadership suite, a far cry from my cluttered desk downstairs. As I packed my things, I felt no triumph over Lila's silence. This wasn't about her. It was about changing a system that hurt us all. I looked at my team, still hunched over laptops, and knew this was just the start. If you're watching and feel like your workplace ignores your truth, don't stop. Your evidence can open doors you can't yet see. Share your story in the comments. Have you ever taken a stand like this? Hit like, subscribe, and join me for part 4, where I start changing things and face some serious pushback. Let's keep this fight going. Hey everyone, Sofia Alvarez here with part 4 of my story. If you haven't caught up on parts 1 through 3, go watch them now. I'm sharing how I went from being dismissed for speaking up about burnout to leading a revolution at my workplace. This video is for anyone who's ever tried to change something and hit a wall of resistance. Today, we're talking about pushing through pushback and seeing the first signs of hope. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, and let's dive in. Change is messy, but it's worth it, and I'm here to show you how. I'm 26, the new Community Wellness Coordinator at Seaside Harmony Arts, a nonprofit in Azure Bay, where we create magic through community festivals, art workshops, and fundraisers. I love seeing kids paint their first murals or retirees find their voice in poetry slams, but for too long, our team was crumbling under 65-hour weeks and endless, temporary projects. In part 1, my manager, Lila Torres, dismissed my burnout concerns with "Toughen up, Sophia." In part 2, I poured my frustration into a 15-page report, The Cost of Creative Burnout, packed with data and stories. In part 3, I presented it to our leadership board, and our executive director, Nadia Patel, offered me this new role to fix our toxic work culture. That first week in my new office upstairs, a small glass-walled space with a view of Azure Bay's ocean, was surreal. I'd gone from a cluttered desk buried in event flyers to a role reporting directly to Nadia. My report had shaken things up. The board approved a workload review, paused new events, and brought in consultants to support ongoing programs. But change doesn't happen just because you have a fancy title or a binder full of data. I was about to learn that the real fight starts when you try to make things stick. My first move was implementing creative rest days. Every Friday, no new tasks could be assigned, giving staff and volunteers time to focus on deep work or catch up. I also launched a workload audit, mapping every program's hours, volunteer shifts, and deliverables. I wanted to know exactly what we were asking of our team and where we could balance things better. My plan included hiring part-time staff to ease the strain and revising how we measured success, focusing on community impact over event quantity. I formed an advisory group with staff and volunteers, including Jonah, our graphic designer who'd been battling anxiety, and Priya, our volunteer coordinator who hid societal pressure and economic incentives, have been well studied. Societal pressure is the influence exerted by the norms, values, and expectations of a society on individuals, often shaping their behavior to align with cultural standards. Economic incentives are rewards or benefits, typically financial, designed to motivate specific actions or decisions, such as bonuses for meeting work targets or tax breaks for certain investments. Hiding migraines. I sent them anonymous feedback forms through a secure system only I could access, asking, "How's your workload? Are you getting enough rest? What's stopping you?" I wanted their unfiltered truth to guide our changes. The first signs of progress were small, but real. Jonah started taking lunch breaks away from his laptop, sketching in the break room instead of designing posters. Priya reported fewer headaches, saying the rest days helped her plan better. Volunteers smiled more at workshops, less frazzled by last-minute changes. But not everyone was on board. Lila, my manager, was the biggest roadblock. She'd been quiet since my presentation to the board, but I could feel her resentment. She started piling extra tasks on her team, urgent donor calls on Fridays, emergency revisions that could have waited. Her department's feedback forms were brutal. Lila scheduled a meeting during Creative Rest Day. She told me to work late or I'd look uncommitted. It was like she was daring me to fail. I anticipated resistance, so I'd built accountability into my plan. The anonymous feedback system let me track issues without exposing anyone. I also set up weekly check-ins with the advisory group, where Jonah shared how Lila's extra assignments were spiking his stress again, and Priya said volunteers were dropping shifts because of her demands. I compiled this feedback into a new report, showing how Lila's department was lagging. Event errors up 20%, volunteer retention down 15% compared to teams embracing the changes. The numbers didn't lie. Her approach was hurting us. I didn't confront Lila directly. Instead, I scheduled a leadership review, inviting Nadia and the board to see department metrics side by side. I projected my findings. Teams following Creative Rest Days had 10% higher event attendance and 25% fewer errors. Lila's team, still grinding under her orders, showed declining quality, typos in flyers, double-booked venues, and a 30% drop in volunteer satisfaction. I kept my tone neutral, letting the data speak. Departments adopting the new standards are seeing stronger community impact, I said. Those sticking to old patterns are struggling. Nadia zeroed in immediately. Lila, what's your plan to align with these standards? Lila's face was tight, her voice clipped. We'll start next week, she said, cornered by the numbers. I didn't gloat. This wasn't about her. It was about the team. After the meeting, she avoided me, but whispers started. Priya texted, Lila's telling people she might transfer to another branch. I didn't react. If she couldn't adapt, that was her choice. My focus was on the team. The advisory group became my lifeline. Jonah suggested cross-training volunteers to reduce single-person bottlenecks. Priya proposed a mentorship program to retain new volunteers. We tested these ideas in small programs, and the results were promising. A kids' art camp ran smoothly with cross-trained staff, and volunteer sign-ups rose 10%. But the emotional toll was heavy. I'd lie awake at night, second-guessing myself. Was I pushing too hard? Would Lila's resistance derail everything? My mom's words grounded me. Your art is your strength. This was my art now, crafting a workplace where creativity could thrive. Small wins kept me going. The break room started buzzing with actual conversations, not just frantic typing. Jonah showed me a sketch he'd done during lunch, a vibrant mural idea inspired by Azure Bay's waves. Priya said her migraines were down to once a week, not daily. One volunteer told me, I stayed because I finally feel seen. These moments reminded me why I'd started this fight. Our mission was to bring art to the community, not to burn out the people making it happen. Lila's resistance wasn't the only challenge. Some staff were hesitant to use creative rest days, fearing they'd seem lazy. I addressed this in advisory meetings, sharing survey quotes. I'm scared to say no to extra work. We brainstormed ways to normalize boundaries, like setting clear task priorities. Slowly, attitudes shifted. One Friday, I saw a group of volunteers laughing over coffee, planning a community mural instead of rushing a deadline. It felt like a glimpse of what we could be. But the rumors about Lila grew louder. By week 3, Jonah overheard her talking about a transfer to our sister branch in San Diego. I didn't know what to feel. Relief, maybe, but also sadness. Lila wasn't the enemy. She was trapped in the same broken system we were fixing. I focused on the work, auditing workloads, refining rest days, and building trust with the team. The advisory group was gaining traction, with volunteers like Priya stepping up as leaders. Change was messy, but it was happening. If you're watching and facing pushback for trying to make things better, don't give up. Resistance is part of the process. It means you're hitting nerves. Have you ever stood up to a boss or a system? Drop your story in the comments. I read them all. Hit like, subscribe, and join me for part 5, where we see bigger changes and some tough challenges. Together, we're building workplaces where people thrive, not just survive. See you next time. Hey everyone, Sofia Alvarez here with part 5 of my story. If you haven't watched parts 1 through 4, go check them out. I'm sharing how I turned a dismissive toughen up from my boss into a movement to fix a toxic workplace. This video is for anyone who's ever pushed for change and wondered if it's actually working. Today, we're talking about real transformation, some tough challenges, and a surprising twist. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, and let's dive in. Change isn't easy, but it's possible, and I'm here to show you how it's done. I'm 26, the Community Wellness Coordinator at Seaside Harmony Arts, a nonprofit in Azure Bay, where we bring communities together through art festivals, workshops, and fundraisers. I live for the moments when a kid's eyes light up painting a mural, or a retiree shares a poem at an open mic. But for years, our team was crushed by 65-hour weeks, endless tasks, and a culture that rewarded exhaustion. In part 1, my manager, Lila Torres, dismissed my burnout concerns. In part 2, I built a report, The Cost of Creative Burnout, with data and stories. In part 3, I presented it to our leadership, landing this new role. In part 4, I started implementing changes like creative rest days, faced Lila's resistance, and saw early wins. By week 4, in my new role, things were shifting. Creative rest days, Fridays with no new tasks, were giving our team breathing room. Jonah, our graphic designer, was sketching for fun again, not just for deadlines. Priya, our volunteer coordinator, reported fewer migraines. Event attendance was up 12%, and errors like misprinted flyers dropped 20%. Volunteers stayed longer, with retention up 15%. But change wasn't universal. Lila was still overloading her team, ignoring rest days, and pushing back against my initiatives. Then, everything changed. One Monday, an email hit our inboxes. Lila Torres is transferring to our San Diego branch, effective immediately. I froze, rereading the words. Lila had been the face of resistance, piling work on her team and dismissing my efforts. Her departure wasn't my goal. I wanted systemic change, not personal wins. But whispers had been growing, and her transfer confirmed them. Nadia Patel, our executive director, called me to her office. Lila felt her leadership style didn't align with our new direction, she said. Her choice. I nodded, unsure how to feel. Change was happening, but it came with a cost. Nadia had another surprise. We're promoting Priya to Lila's role as program director. I wasn't shocked. Priya had shown grit and heart, managing volunteers despite her own burnout. But the team buzzed with surprise. Priya was quiet, not the loud leader type, but I knew she'd bring compassion Lila never had. I texted her, "You've got this. Let's make it work." She replied, "Thanks for believing in me." It felt like a new chapter. With Priya leading programs, my initiatives gained traction. Creative rest days became sacred. Staff and volunteers used them to plan thoughtfully, not just catch up. Our workload audit revealed we'd been running 30% more events than similar nonprofits, with half the staff. We hired 2 part-time coordinators, easing the strain. Event quality soared. Our summer festival drew 500 more attendees than last year, with glowing feedback. This felt like real art. One attendee wrote, "Sick days dropped 22%, and I noticed something new in the break room. Laughter, real conversations, not just frantic planning." But transformation wasn't a straight line. Cultural challenges lingered. Anonymous feedback showed staff hesitated to set boundaries, fearing they'd seem uncommitted. One survey response hit hard. "I love creative rest days, but I'm scared to skip late-night emails." Others echoed this. "I was told taking breaks looks weak." This wasn't just habit. It was a culture of subtle intimidation, praising overwork as dedication. I knew data alone wouldn't fix this. We needed to talk. I launched small discussion groups, cross-functional teams without managers present, to share experiences safely. I joined one, listening as a volunteer said, "I ran a workshop with a fever because I didn't want to let the team down." Jonah shared, "I skipped my partner's birthday dinner for a deadline, and my boss praised me for it." A new staffer admitted, "I'm afraid to leave at 5 p.m. because it feels like I'm not all in." These stories weren't just complaints. They were evidence of a system we had to unlearn. We documented these patterns and drafted new norms. No emails after 7 p.m., clear task priorities, and evaluations based on impact, not hours. I presented these to Nadia, who approved them for a trial run. Slowly, people tested the waters. Jonah started leaving at 6 p.m. twice a week, his sketches brighter than ever. Priya set an example, logging off at night and encouraging her team to do the same. But not everyone bought in. Victor, a board member overseeing finances, was my biggest challenge. In a meeting, he scoffed at my norms. "This is a nonprofit, Sofia. Donors expect results, not rest. We can't afford to slow down." His voice carried the weight of someone used to winning arguments. I'd prepared for this. I pulled up my laptop, showing a graph. Since we started Creative Rest Days, event attendance is up 12%, and donor retention is up 8%. We saved $30,000 on contractors because errors are down. Sustainability isn't slowing us down, it's boosting our impact. Victor leaned back, silent but unconvinced. "Numbers are nice, but donors want volume," he said. "They want more events." "More doesn't mean better," I countered. "Our last festival had 500 extra attendees because we planned it well, not rushed. Donors are noticing. 3 pledged larger grants this quarter." I shared a quote from a donor. "Seaside Harmony feels alive again." Victor didn't budge, but Nadia stepped in. "Sophia's right. Quality drives funding. Let's keep this moving." It wasn't a full win, but it was progress. The emotional toll was heavier than I'd expected. Late nights, I'd stare at the ocean from my apartment, wondering if I was strong enough to keep going. Victor's skepticism echoed Lila's dismissal, and some staff whispered I was too idealistic. But my mom's words kept me grounded. "Your art is your strength." This work, building a workplace where creativity didn't mean sacrifice, was my art now. Every time I saw Priya leading with kindness or Jonas sketching freely, I knew it was worth it. Then, a surprise came. An email from an arts conference invited me to speak about our changes. "Your approach to sustainable creativity is gaining attention," it read. I was also nominated for an industry award for nonprofit innovation. I sat at my desk, stunned. This wasn't why I'd started, but it showed our work was rippling outward. I shared the news with the advisory group, and Priya grinned. "You're putting us on the map, Sofia." Jonah added, "This is bigger than us now." But challenges kept coming. Some staff resisted the new norms, conditioned to equate long hours with loyalty. One feedback form read, "I don't trust this won't backfire." Victor kept pushing for more events, emailing Nadia to question my budget. I countered with data at every turn, showing how our changes saved money and boosted engagement. It was exhausting, but the numbers were my shield. Client satisfaction up 15%, volunteer retention climbing, and no stress-related sick leaves in 2 months. Reflecting one night, I realized this wasn't about Lila or Victor. It was about dismantling a system that hurt people and called it passion. Lila's departure, Priya's promotion, the award nomination, they weren't the victory. The real win was the team eating lunch together, planning murals instead of panicking, and the community showing up in droves. I wasn't fighting for revenge. I was fighting for a future where art didn't cost us our souls. If you're watching and trying to change your workplace, know this. Transformation takes time, and resistance is normal. Your data, your stories, they're your power. Have you faced pushback like I did with Victor? Share it in the comments. I read everyone. Hit like, subscribe, and join me for part 6, where we see the long-term impact and an unexpected message from Lila. Let's keep building spaces where we thrive, not just survive. See you next time. Hey everyone, Sofia Alvarez here with the final part of my story, part 6. If you haven't watched parts 1 through 5, go back and catch up. I've been sharing how I turned a toxic workplace into a place where creativity thrives. This video is for anyone who's ever felt trapped in a job that doesn't value them and wondered if change is possible. Today, we're wrapping up with the long-term impact, a surprising message, and a challenge for you. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, and let's dive in. Your story can change the world, and I'm here to show you why. I'm 26, the Community Wellness Coordinator at Seaside Harmony Arts, a nonprofit in Azure Bay, where we bring communities together through art festivals, workshops, and fundraisers. I live for those moments when a kid paints their first mural, or a retiree reads a poem that makes the room hush. But for years, our team was crushed by 65-hour weeks, endless tasks, and a culture that glorified exhaustion. In part 1, my manager, Lila Torres, dismissed my burnout concerns with "Toughen up, Sofia." In part 2, I built a report, "The Cost of Creative Burnout," with data and stories. In part 3, I presented it to our leadership, landing this role. In part 4, I faced Lila's resistance while implementing creative rest days. In part 5, Lila transferred, Priya was promoted, and our changes started transforming the organization. 6 months into my role, Seaside Harmony Arts was unrecognizable in the best way. Creative rest days were now a cornerstone, giving staff and volunteers time to breathe and create. Event attendance was up 18%, with our fall festival drawing record crowds, no typos in the programs, no double-booked venues. Volunteer retention hit a new high, up 25%, and stress-related sick days dropped to 0 for an entire quarter. The break room buzzed with laughter, not just deadlines. Jonah, our graphic designer, showed me a mural he'd painted during a rest day, inspired by Azure Bay's waves. It was now the centerpiece of our community center. Priya, our new program director, led with kindness, setting boundaries and inspiring her team to do the same. But the biggest win came when Nadia Patel, our executive director, called me to her office. "Sofia," she said, "your work isn't a temporary fix anymore. We're making your department permanent, Chief of Workplace Culture and Sustainability, reporting to me." My jaw dropped. I'd proposed this role weeks earlier, but I hadn't expected board approval so fast. "You'll have an expanded team and budget," Nadia added. "This is the new standard for how we operate." I walked out, the ocean sparkling through the window, feeling the weight of what we'd built. This wasn't just a job, it was a legacy. The impact went beyond our walls. Arts and Impact, a leading nonprofit journal, published a feature on our transformation titled "Sustaining Creativity: How Seaside Harmony Arts Redefined Success." They quoted our volunteers. "This place feels alive again." I was invited to speak at national arts conferences, sharing our framework, workload audits, rest days, and norms like no emails after 7 p.m. Other nonprofits reached out, asking how to replicate our model. One director in Chicago emailed, "Your approach saved our team from collapse." I felt a rush of validation, Not for me, but for everyone who'd shared their stories in those anonymous surveys. Then, an unexpected email landed in my inbox. It was from Lila, now at our San Diego branch. I hesitated before opening it, remembering her dismissal, her resistance. The subject read, "Your Framework." Her message was short but heavy. "Sophia, I've been following your work at headquarters. I've implemented parts of your framework here. Rest days, workload caps. The results are undeniable. Event quality is up. Turnover is down. I was wrong in how I led in Azure Bay. I saw targets, not people. Thank you for showing another way." No apology, just acknowledgement, but it was enough. I sat with her words, the ocean's hum faint outside my apartment. Lila wasn't my enemy. She was part of the same broken system I'd fought. Her message showed even she could change. I replied simply, "Lila, I'm glad the framework's working in San Diego. If you want to discuss implementation, I'm open to that." Sophia. Professional, forward-looking. The past couldn't be undone, but the future was ours to shape. Reflecting on this journey, I realized how far we'd come. A year ago, I stood in Lila's doorway, dismissed and exhausted, dreaming of dramatic confrontations. Instead, I'd built something bigger, systemic change that lifted everyone. The real victory wasn't Lila's transfer or my new title. It was Jonah sketching freely, Priya leading with heart, volunteers staying because they felt valued, and kids painting murals without rushed staff behind them. My mom's words rang true. Your art is your strength. This work, crafting a workplace where creativity thrived, was my masterpiece. Our story became a case study. Nonprofit Quarterly ran a profile, and I spoke at a conference in Seattle, sharing our data. 18% higher event attendance, 25% better volunteer retention, and $50,000 saved on contractors. But I always emphasized the human side. Numbers matter, I told audiences, but the real change is in the laughter, the lunch breaks, the community showing up because we're not burned out. Every time I spoke, I thought of my team's survey responses. I missed my sister's wedding. I love art, but this job made me hate it. And I knew this was their victory too. The hardest part was keeping the change alive. Some staff still feared boundaries, conditioned to overwork. Victor, the skeptical board member, kept pushing for more events, but Priya and I countered with data at every meeting, showing quality drove donations. Slowly, even he softened, admitting our latest fundraiser outperformed expectations. The advisory group, Jonah, Priya, and volunteers, became my backbone, suggesting tweaks like peer mentorship to keep new staff supported. We weren't perfect, but we were moving forward. One evening, as I packed up at a reasonable hour, something unthinkable a year ago, I paused in the office. The team was planning a mural project, laughing over ideas, not hunched over laptops. No one was hiding stress in the bathroom or skipping family dinners. This was what I'd fought for. Not revenge against Lila, but a place where art didn't cost us our lives. My report, born from that toughen up moment, had changed hundreds of lives, including hers. That's the thing about change. It's not about winning a fight. It's about building something better. If you're watching and feel trapped in a toxic workplace, listen. Your struggle is data. Every late night, every missed moment, every time you're dismissed, it's evidence. Write it down, share it, use it. You don't need to be a hero to change a system. You need truth and persistence. My story started with a binder and a belief that we deserved better. Yours could start with a note, a conversation, or a single step. I want to hear from you. Have you fought for change in your workplace? Drop your story in the comments. I read every one. If this series inspired you, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's start a conversation that sparks more change. Burnout isn't the price of success. It's the obstacle. Your well-being is the foundation for greatness. Together, we can transform workplaces into spaces where we thrive, not just survive. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Keep creating, keep fighting, and I'll see you in the next video.